When you're starting a new Facebook ad campaign, usually your cost per conversion or cost per link click or cost per optimization event, pick it, which if you're sending traffic to Spotify, you should be using conversions, but that's for another video. Usually that cost per conversion event is going to be higher at first than you want it to be. And it's going to be higher at first than what it ultimately is going to become once that ad campaign optimizes. This period of time when everything is volatile and the cost per conversion is higher than you want it to be, Facebook has a name for that. It's called the learning phase. And in this video, we're going to talk about what the learning phase is, how it works, and how you can set up and structure your ad campaigns to get through it as efficiently and as quickly as possible. What's up, guys? It's Tom. Welcome back to the lab. Welcome back to another video. Welcome back to my life. Now today, we're back with part 6 in our 11-part series, Top 10 Mistakes When Using Facebook Ads to Promote Your Music on Spotify. And today's video is about the learning phase. The learning phase is this part of your campaign when it first gets started and everything is just trying to figure out what is going on. Both you and the algorithm in the Facebook ad campaign itself. This learning phase is a very important part of getting your campaign started off on the right foot. And Facebook has a lot to say about what this learning phase is, and it even can tell us specifically how to get through it and how to troubleshoot if we're having issues with it. So let's get into it. All right, first things first, this video is going to be a little bit different than the previous videos in this series in that I'm not going to be referencing any ad campaigns that I've run. If you want to see some reference points for this series as a whole, go check out the first video in this series, which is right here, or just go to the top of the playlist and play your way through. In fact, the last couple of videos I've posted in this series have referenced campaigns on the screen here. You can look at those to kind of see some of the things I'm talking about with regard to the learning phase here. So let's get into what the learning phase is. Here's what Facebook has to say about the learning phase. Each time an ad is shown, our ads delivery system learns more about the best people and places to show the ad. The more an ad is shown, the better the delivery system becomes at optimizing the ad's performance. What this means is the more it works, the more it learns, and the more it learns, the better it gets. So you want to give your ad campaign ample time to learn on your behalf. It's only going to get better the more opportunity it has to do that. Facebook goes on to say that the learning phase is the period when the delivery system still has a lot to learn about an ad set. Point to make here, the learning phase occurs at the ad set level, not the campaign level and not the ad level. So when we're talking about the learning phase, we're talking about how it affects one single ad set. The learning phase can be different per ad set inside of a campaign. Now, moving on to what Facebook has to say about it. During the learning phase, the delivery system is exploring the best way to deliver your ad set. So performance is less stable and cost per action is usually worse. I've experienced this every time, as I'm sure you have too if you've run any ad campaigns using Facebook. The learning phase occurs when you create a new ad or ad set or make significant edits to an existing one. Now, how do you know if you're in the learning phase with your ad campaign? Some versions of Facebook Ad Manager will indicate learning in the status bar of your campaign when it first gets started. Depending on which version you have, I still don't know how to figure that out, by the way, but I'm looking into it. It will say that. For me, in my Ad Manager, it doesn't say that. It just says active immediately. I have looked into this a lot. If for some reason your ad manager is like mine and it just says active and doesn't say learning when you first start a campaign, everything I've read says that that's not an issue. So if I find out differently, I will let you know in a follow-up video. Or if you know more than I do about this, let me know in the comments because I would love to learn more about it. This education for me is ongoing, so I'm still trying to figure that part out. It also can read learning limited, which we'll get to in a little bit. When you're in the learning phase, it takes 50 optimization events to get out of it on average. And when you're going through those first 50 optimization events, your ad set is figuring out what it is you're trying to get it to do and how to do it the best on your behalf. So in theory, you want to get out of the learning phase as quickly as possible because you want your ad set and your campaign to learn what it's trying to do and then start to optimize and bring that cost down for you. So it behooves you to try to get through it as quickly as you can. That way you can start bringing your ad costs down and getting more bang for your buck. Now, there are some things that you can do to make sure you get out of this period more quickly without creating a whole lot of complexity in your ad campaign. And here's what Facebook has to say about best practices in this regard. They say to avoid behaviors that prevent ad sets from exiting the learning phase, we recommend you, 1, wait to edit your ad set until it is out of the learning phase. I've learned this the hard way. Don't make any significant edits. Don't touch anything until you've gotten to 50 conversion events on your ad set. Otherwise, you're just going to prolong the learning phase, and you're also going to be sending that algorithm a lot of mixed signals, and it's never going to be able to fully figure out what it is you're trying to get it to do. Next, they say avoid unnecessary edits that cause your ad set to re-enter the learning phase. Now, this is a little bit different than editing your ad while it's still in the learning phase. You can actually get out of the learning phase and then make an edit to your ad set and put it back into the learning phase, which means it's got to go through 50 conversion events again before it can start to re-optimize on your behalf. So you want to avoid significant edits. We'll get to what a significant edit constitutes in just a minute. Next, you want to avoid high ad volumes. You want to avoid having an overly complicated ad campaign. An ad campaign that's got 10 ad sets in it and then 5 ads per ad set. You add all of that stuff in there, and it's going to take a really long time for any single ad set to optimize and get out of that learning phase. So for example, let's say you've got a campaign that you've just started and you're running it for $10 a day. And let's say that you start out of the gate and consistently, without any change, you get 20 cents per conversion for this ad campaign. This is unrealistic for it to stay stagnant the whole time and start in such a nice, clean number. But just for argument's sake, let's say you start at exactly 20 cents per conversion and it stays exactly there for the entirety of the first day. If you have one ad set in that campaign, it's going to take you 1 day to get out of the learning phase. If you have 2 ad sets, it's going to take you 2 days, assuming that the budget is equally distributed among both ad sets. If you have 3, it's going to take longer, and so on and so forth. It works to your benefit to minimize the amount of ad sets per campaign you have. Additionally, it works to your benefit to minimize the amount of ads per ad set that you have. That way there are less options for Facebook to spread the budget around to and try to figure out. And then lastly, according to Facebook in their best practices list, you need to use realistic budgets. Now, what does this mean? Basically, what they're saying is don't start at $5 a day with the intent to eventually get to $50 a day after the learning phase is complete. You don't want to set your campaign to learn at $5 a day and then once you get out of it, bump that budget up to $50 per day. You want to start within a reasonable window of budget that you're going to ultimately end up on, at least once the learning phase is over. So, for example, you don't want to make any budgetary changes that are greater than 30 to 50% every few days. Doing that will cause your ad campaign to go back into learning, or your ad set rather, to go back into the learning phase. Let's say you start at $10 a day. You can up it to $15 a day, or you can lower it to $5 a day from there, but don't start at 10 and go to 100. Conversely, don't start at 50 and drop it to 5. So just get within the right ballpark. You can move your budget around without re-entering the learning phase, but you want to get close to where you're going to start. So for example, another example, a lot of the time people like to front end load their ad campaign when pushing music to Spotify. So you drop a song on Friday, you start your campaign at $50 a day and you run it at $50 a day for the first 3 days. And then you cut it in half to 25. You do that for 3 or 4 days. Then maybe you cut it down to 20 or 15. This is a good practice. This is a good way to stop from re-entering the learning phase because you're only changing your budget by 50% each time. And you get out of the learning phase quickly because your biggest portion of your budget is on the front end. This also is a good way to drive algorithmic traffic on the platform itself. Okay, now that we understand what the learning phase is, let's talk about significant edits to your ad campaign and specifically to your ad set that can disrupt the learning phase or send you back into the learning phase. This is a list of things that Facebook considers to be significant edits to your ad set. Any change to targeting, any change to ad creative, any change to the optimization event. What are you trying to get the ad campaign to do for you? Adding a new ad to your ad set, pausing your ad set for 7 days, If you let it sit for 7 days turned off, it's going to have to relearn again once you turn it back on. And then lastly, changing your bid strategy. So if you're bidding for lowest cost, you might change your strategy to something else, and that will cause the whole campaign to reevaluate, and maybe more than one ad set if you're using campaign budget optimization to re-enter the learning phase again. And then these are a few things that Facebook says may make you re-enter the learning phase, or may be considered significant edits depending on how much of a change you make. Changing your ad spend limit amount. So you can set limits on the minimum amount you want an ad set to spend or the maximum amount you want an ad set to spend. And making it change by too much each time could cause it to re-enter the learning phase. Additionally, changing your bid control, cost control, or ROAS control amount. And then lastly, changing your budget amount at the campaign level. This is what I was talking about before. So if you start out at $50 a day and then cut it to 25, cut it to 20 or 15, and so on and so forth, you're probably okay. But if you start at $50 a day and then cut it to 5, you're going to re-enter the learning phase. Okay, so you've set up your campaign, you have made sure that your budget's correct, you've made sure it's not too complicated, and you've made sure that everything is succinct and you're ready to get out of this learning phase and start optimizing quickly. But then you run into a problem and your campaign reads learning limited. So what does that mean? Well, that basically means that your campaign has not gotten, is not getting, and is not projected to get enough conversion events to fully educate itself on what you want it to do. So you need to make some changes. Usually this is going to happen if you've got a campaign that is too complex, or if your targeting is overlapping between ad sets. So if you've got duplicated ad sets with duplicated ads and you're targeting the exact same thing, well, all of the traffic might go to one and not to the other one, because why would it? It's doing the exact same thing this one is doing. If you're split testing ad creative among the two and the audiences are the same, you're less likely to run into that problem. But if you're basically duplicating the whole thing, you might run into that problem. So what you want to do is just take a look at how your ads are structured and change things, combine things where you can, maybe remove some options where you can, and streamline things a little bit more. A couple of other options you have if you run into a learning limited problem: you can make your audience bigger, expand your targeting. That way there are more options for Facebook to look at to find the right thing that you're trying to get it to do for the right price. Or you can raise your budget. Sometimes it comes down to the simple fact that there's just not enough money getting put across all these places for it to optimize anything. So it's kind of an inverse relationship between complexity of your ads versus the budget you have. So if you got a $5 budget and you have one ad set with one ad, that's going to do a lot better than a $5 budget with 5 ad sets and 5 ads a piece. But if you've got a $100 budget, your 5 ad sets and 5 ads a piece will probably be okay. You want to balance that out and make sure that everything is sort of in the right ballpark with one another. And that's it for this video. This has been super nerdy. I know this has been digging into the very, very nuts and bolts of the inner workings of Facebook ads and trying to figure out how to get the most out of it. If you came here looking for a video that was not super nerdy, then I apologize. But if you did, you're welcome. I wanted to share this video specifically, one, because I decided to make a series out of all these tragic mistakes I've made with Facebook ads, which I hope you'll watch the whole thing if you haven't, but also because this learning phase is something that tripped me up many times. And though it seems obvious to me now, when I first started running ads on Facebook, it was not obvious to me at all. I couldn't understand for the life of me why I would start an ad campaign and it would start out so high, and then I would make adjustments to it to bring it lower, and it would just end up pushing it higher. It didn't make any sense to me. And once I figured out that the learning phase is a thing, and I started leaving my ad campaigns alone for the first 50 conversion events per ad set, my results started getting so much stronger. And then furthermore, once I started simplifying my campaigns a bit more and front loading my budget a little bit and then backing it down a reasonable amount, once I learned about what significant edits really are, my campaign started performing even better from there. So again, if you know this, if you knew this going into it, then you get it. But if you didn't, for me, this was a big light bulb moment. So if you want to check out this entire series, Top 10 Mistakes I've Made or to make with Facebook ads for Spotify, you can check that out at the end here up top. And then the previous video in this series is right here. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.